Hello everyone, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is finally released, and I was able to play it yesterday because I'm on PC, and of course all those console users are going to be able to play it today. I'm sure everybody's seen tons of information about it and whatnot, but I've noticed that there's some weird misgivings and strange opinions out there calling it a little bit more old school in that, but I don't find that to be exactly true. I've only played the game 5 or 6 hours, yet I've seen all the changes that have been made and all the concessions and whatnot to make it a more user-friendly experience that everybody can enjoy. Of course, I don't feel like anything about the game is bad. Armored Core is one of the reasons I started this channel originally, and now seeing it brought back in the modern day, it's really nice to see all these improvements and modern ideas put into it. So what I'm about to say is in no way a hit piece. I love the game, I do think it deserves all the hype it's getting, but I think that some people may have warped the truth a little bit so that they appeal to older users. So first and foremost, I am going to mention the fact that this game does borrow some Souls elements. Firstly, much like the Estus Flask from the Dark Souls series, you do get 3 heals here. It does make the game just a little bit easier because you get these every single mission and when you restart from a checkpoint. The game also takes the stamina and stance systems from those games and applies it to the Armored Core universe. There's a stat in this game called Attitude, which basically stands for your stance meter. Once this goes to max, you basically get stunned and you're allowed to do a powerful move. Most of the game's bosses are basically about getting this bar down so that you can do a massive damaging attack. And of course, all the other stamina elements are basically tied to your EN meter. None of this is bad, it does add a new element of strategy into the game, and that's really important because this game also has a lot of Souls-like bosses. Much like FromSoftware's other games, there's a lot of emphasis on overcoming insurmountable odds when you're just a little peon. You might be in basically what is a giant armored war machine, but everything else is usually bigger and stronger than you. You do get 3 heals, but unless you use them strategically and smartly, you're gonna get creamed pretty fast, even on the introductory mission. Of course, there are some other elements, such as the fact that there are shields and whatnot later on, but a lot of the other Souls-like elements are pretty much negligible and can be applied to many other games. Other major changes I'd like to mention are the fact that this game does not herald back to the original control scheme. It is completely new and more reminiscent of Armored Core 5, oddly enough. And honestly, thank God for that, because the original control scheme for Armored Core was very difficult to learn, but that was also the philosophy of mech games at the time. If you're familiar with 4 Answer, there was a little bit of tweaking that could be done with parts and whatnot to make some attributes lean in one direction or another. That's not here. Customization is pretty simple this time and very easy to understand. The game actually has tutorials which run through all kinds of different aspects of the customization and what parts do and how they work and what's good and what's bad, and basically lets you go free reign with whatever you want. Of course, old players will also notice that even if you have a very heavy mecha, you will basically be going pretty fast compared to the older games. All of the half-baked fluidity elements of Armored Core 5 are just here and better and refined. It all works this time. It doesn't feel clunky and odd or slow and janky like it did there. There's clearly been some genuine effort to make all the ideas of those games work. Not that they were bad, they just didn't work as well as they should have. But also mentioning the biggest detriment of the Armored Core 5 games, basically, the online elements that could lock you out of content are not present here. All you get is an arena mode, which thank God for that. I did have a whole lot of trouble getting into that though, because it kept locking me out due to frame rate, but I had a high frame rate, so I didn't really understand what was going on here. Of course, this is going to be less likely of an issue on consoles where everything's locked to certain values. Now, for other things I want to mention that are just, they're not bad, but they're definitely changes. Mainly the story and tone is very much different than any other Armored Core game I've ever played, and I played them all. While in other games you were always just a mercenary getting what he wants in any way that you really wanted, they really took that up here. For instance, you're not actually a Raven anymore. You're not part of a mercenary organization, you just steal the call sign. You might have been able to roleplay as the good guy a bit before, but here you're just like definitely not the good guy. You are just interrupting in order to get the biggest payout and try to get what you want right away, along with your handler, who is clearly shady. From the get-go, you're taking down people who are just testing ACs or people that are just trying to stand up for themselves against government organizations and corporations. It doesn't matter. They're crying out for help and you're mowing them down for a payday. In fact, in some missions you get allies and it's immediately made aware that you're just using them as a decoy so that you can get to your goals and accomplish them immediately. So I mean, opinion, maybe the game leans a little too heavy into maybe your AC character being a bad guy. Now, I know they were going for the neutral tone of the previous games, but there is some serious malicious intent here. I mean, maybe that's just me. Take it for what you want. Tell me what you think in the comments. On that subject, the storyline is a lot more digestible here. You can understand things that are going on and get behind characters a little easier here without deep diving into lore. This was a huge aspect of the originals, and it made them very obtuse in some ways, but it's not really present here. It does continue on the tradition of showing storyline without actually showing humans, though. This was an old limitation that I really enjoyed, and I liked what they did with it, and I'm happy to see it here. It makes the story more involved, and you still see all those mechs in action all the time. Another really good return that I like is the fact that you can replay missions for rankings. However, it's a little more forgiving here. You can take a whole lot more hits and use a whole lot more ammunition before it takes away that S rank. You just pretty much got to be really fast and really precise, but not so much as you'd think. And finally, I'd really like to mention the fact that the hardlock mode here isn't as bad as people think. Actually, it really doesn't work that well in my opinion, and I think that's intentional. I found that when I was using it, it kind of obstructed the gameplay for me, and it didn't make things easier unless I wanted to land a melee attack. I never thought I'd say that the Armored Core series really didn't need a hard lock, but it really doesn't here. I think they just included it for usability, but they also made it the way it was so that people didn't really think that it was a cheaty thing to do. I mean, if it worked too well, then the FCS system would be completely useless and they'd have to remove that, and then people would definitely complain. I'd complain, so I understand. That being said though, aiming and locking on is not as involved as Armored Core 1 through 3, I think, or up to Nexus at least. The speed and fluidity here is more like what they were aiming for with Armored Core 4 and 5. So if the game didn't have some sort of soft lock when it came to aiming, you'd pretty much just be zipping through everything, having to stop jarringly. It just wouldn't work. But anyhow, this has been my thoughts. This is just a quick first impressions video and what I thought the changes were and what they were made. Please, put anything in the comments below. I do know that the energy and weight system is a little bit more forgiving this time. Besides that, I'm sure there are a bunch of changes that I'm going to uncover as I keep going through the game and peeling back the layers. Anyhow, it being console release day, I'm sure you've got your copy in hand or you're waiting for it in the mail, so I hope you enjoy it. Please tell me what you think about the game in the comments below. I'm going to go play the game and see what I can uncover. I hope you do the same and you're having a good day. Thank you.